Good morning, folks. Today we are going to convert the Trek, which isn't yet behind me, from Sora group set over to hydraulic 105 group set. So going to be using a couple of manuals again to help me along the way. I've got the one from the front derailleur here, and also I have the one for the rear derailleur when my mouse stops playing around. Yeah, I've got them from the Shimano website, so I will, yeah, there it is, rear derailleur. I will put links in the bottom to exactly where I got them from. As I said, I will be looking at them while I do the job, and they're well laid out and explain everything very well. Right, so I best get the Trek in here and get it set up and get a move on. Right, okay, so we have the bike in the stand, and that, and I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to wheels off, and then I will strip all the existing drivetrain off of it. So disconnect the cables and take both front and rear mechs off. And also take the chain set off. So yeah, that's going to be my first port of call. Okay, so now got the wheels off, chain off, derailleur is still on. Going to take the cranks off. So I need to just undo the end cap in there using this here tool and that. So we'll go ahead and do that. Right, to undo that end cap, you have to first of all loosen off both the clamp bolts on the crank, and then once you've got those loose and the end cap out, you should be able to lift this little plastic bit up and then pull the crank off. So just give me a second. Right, the crank arm shouldn't be too bad to take off. You might just need to give it just a little gentle tap on the back to get it moving, but then once it's started coming, it's just a case of pulling it off. So yeah, that's that crank arm off, and then I think next step is to take the front derailleur off, and then I'll pull the chain set out of the bottom bracket. Right, yeah, just a couple of gentle taps on the end of the chain set, and that, and then it's loose enough to pull out. Hey, there we go. One rather grubby Sora chain set. Will get cleaned up later, and hopefully I'll find a buyer. Right, so having got that out, next is going to be rear mech to come off and rear calipers, and that will be all the rear end stripped out then. I think before we start reassembling, there'll be a few baby wipes out and just give it a bit of a clean up the back end. Right, so at this point the rear end is completely stripped out. All the drivetrain gone, calipers off. Had to nip the end of the rear brake cable and the rear gear shift cable, just to nip the ends off, so I could get them. Yeah, so I could just pull them out from the barrel adjusters and that. But at the moment I'm leaving them laid in place till I'm ready to pull the old ones out and sort out exactly how the new ones are going in, because these outers run completely through. So and on the same on the gear shift one, that runs completely through. So that'll actually make putting the rear shift cable in, because it will just be a case of leave the existing outer in place and feeding the new inner through it. But then I've got to pull the brake one out and get the brake hose up through there. So yeah, could be fun. We'll see. We'll find a way. Right, now all rear end is all dismantled and cleaned up. That's the brake I'm going to be doing first. So rear brake, front derailleur and that. So we will strip out the left hand side, unwrap the left hand side of the bar. As I say, I'm going to leave some of the cables in place and that to put the new shifter cables through, and I'll also use them as a gauge of length for my brake hoses, because if I can get them in a similar routing as to what they are now, they'll be all nice and tidy, and Adrian won't be able to make any comments about the length of hoses. Right, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to unwrap this left hand side here and strip that out, and then we'll start putting stuff back together. Once we sorted out how we're going to get that rear hose through. I've got some thoughts on that, so yeah, we'll take that one as it comes. Okay, to get the gear shifter cable out, you just have to open up this little plastic tab here, pull it back, and then you can just get a thin screwdriver under the inner, and it will then pull out. Right, so I've got the kite line from that we used when I converted the Giant over to hydraulic. I've got that pushed down inside the rear brake outer for a while. I couldn't get it all the way through, so I've taped it at the end, and I've taken the cable, outer cable clamp off at the top here, little 2mm Allen bolt, and then that makes everything nice and free, and we can pull it out at the bottom. Right, okay, so yeah, it's pulled through. It was a little bit of a fiddle up the very top end. I had to guide it round the other two cables. Once I could see it, I could pull it across the other way and just very carefully push it up from the bottom, and once it was through, well, there you can see. So now we can try and get it into the right type of position for everything. So yeah, that's that one done. So that's the difficult one. Hopefully that one shouldn't be too difficult because it's got nothing in its way. So similar technique there, I think. And yeah, we'll just have to see how that one goes, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. We'll get all this rear sorted out first and get the drive chain all put back together. That caliper isn't staying on there because it's a silver one and I've got a pair of black ones. So, but that was the only way I could get the left-hand shifter, was to buy a left-hand shifter complete with caliper. Nowhere had got the left-hand shifter by its own. So that's a pre-bled unit, and yeah, we all know about them from the last time. So right, I'll get this cable, this hose all untwisted and put in rough position up the top end. I might have to cut the hose, we'll see when we come to put it all together, but we'll get the top end sorted and in place. And length, so yeah, all coming along well. Right, got the shifter on, just on loose, because we all remember from last time we have to move it around all over the place when we connect up the hose. And that, so I've just got it roughly in place. You can see there's going to be a whole load of slack at the moment down the back end, so we're going to shorten it, and we'll shorten it from that end So I'm going to get that little baby in there next. We've got the gear cable all threaded through, so that's all in place, so we can get that sorted, and then we'll start sorting the front derailleur and getting that and the front chain rings all back in place. So yeah, I'm pleased with the way it's coming along, coming together quite nicely. Right. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next. Right, so yes, so after taking the cover off the end, you see we've got a silver mark there, and taking the bung out, you push the hose in till that silver mark disappears down inside the nut. So there you go, that's pushed down inside. And now you just nip the nut up nice and firm. With an 8mm spanner. Right, so I've sorted the cable and hose positions out up the top end on this side, and I'm happy with the steering action. It's not it's not catching anywhere. Hoses are alright, so I've stuck the hose grommet clamp thing back in place and nip that back up. So yeah, and as you can see, there is a whole load of hose out the back end, which I'm going to have to get rid of. So I'm going to have to, yeah, I'm going to have to disconnect it. Well, I was going to put the other caliper on in any case, so I'll loosely put the other caliper on, then I can run this up so it's in the appropriate position. Measure my hose length and then cut it, put a new barb in, new olive on, and that'll be that end done. But we'll do that a little bit later on. I want to get front derailleur, etc. in place first and get that all set up. So that's the next bit. Right, so the chain set just pushes through the bottom bracket, and then you've got to do the preload bolt up with the tool. I've taken it off the other tool for ease. It doesn't have to be tight, so just make sure you press the tab down and tighten that up finger tight before torquing the bolts evenly. Do them bit till they're at the right torque. Don't do one and then do the other, just do them evenly as you tighten them up. Yeah, they need to be tightened evenly, those two bolts, as it says on there. So each of the bolts should be evenly and equally tightened to 12 to 14 Newton meters by torque wrench. So torque wrench time, and we'll nip them up. Right, so yeah, all the front cranks on, front derailleurs now on and set up. And on the front derailleur, what you have to do is position it so that there's a clearance of between 1 and 3 mil in there, and then by adjusting the low screw, adjust the low screw so that the outer edge of the derailleur is level with the outer edge of the large chainring, and of course so it's all running nice and parallel. So now we can see about installing the cable and setting the correct cable tension on there. So that's the next fiddle. Right, we've got the cable in place. To install that, you feed it all up through the relevant slots. Pull any initial slack, nip the bolt up, pull any initial slack out of it, and then loosen the bolt off again, making sure it's all turned round like so. Pull the cable taut by hand and nip the bolt back up again. Right, now having got the cable all in and sorted, the next thing is to fine tune the tension on that cable, and this is where you find out if you've got it tight enough to start off with. So what you do is you shift over into the big ring and then just tap the paddle to drop it back onto the trim position between the small and the big ring, and then you need to adjust this screw here till those two marks line up. So that's a two mil Allen, and just screw it in. Till they line up. Now if they don't, what you might have to do is slacken it off a little bit, retension the cable, which is what I'm going to have to do, retension the cable from there and then redo it. So I'm going to have a fiddle and get this one right. Okay, it's taking a little bit of fiddling, but yeah, I'm happy with that. I might just try, once cables are settled in a little bit, I might try and get it a little bit closer, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So now we can put the cap on and route the cable around and put the rear mech on and sort that all out. Once we got the other shifter on, of course. So we just got this pipe to sort out. And that, and put the other caliper on, and then we'll be in business at the back. It's just a case of sorting out that and the other shifter. So yeah, coming along nicely. Well pleased with progress. Okay, so I've cable tied that with the hose up into place. Now I'm about to cut it, but I'm going to cut it a little bit long this end so that I know I'm all right on it, and any little bit extra I could just pull through up to the top and I know I'll be fine. So that's next. I'm going to cut it round about there. So, and then install the olive and the needle, and of course the union. So that's my next step. Right, I had a problem. I couldn't get this union here to seal properly. And that, but I finally worked out what I was doing wrong. So here's a tip. What was happening is the olive wasn't going onto the hose properly up in the caliper. So what you've got to do is, I ended up taking the caliper off and pushing the hose up into the caliper and then sliding the olive up and then starting the union by hand and screwing it in, screwing it in slowly with my fingers till I could feel it nipping up with the hose firmly pushed up into the caliper, and it did the trick. So I then bled it, and we're in business. But I'll go through bleeding when I change the front one. Everything's a little bit easier to get to. On here, with the open-ended spanner I've got, the bleed nipple's a little bit difficult to get to. so I should be treating myself to a 7mm ring spanner in future, because that'll fit on there better and easier. So yeah, so that's all bled. I'm happy with the hose lengths. So yeah, I can crack on with the other side. So there's a tip for you. Make sure the hose is right up into the caliper, and then slide the olive up in over the hose, and then finger tight on the union itself, and then nip it up with a spanner so it seals properly. Right, rear mech's on, and hanger top, the manual says 8 to 10, so I've gone for 10. And when you put them on, make sure that that little lug there is in contact with the back of the hanger without any gap. Okay, so I just tied it up, end of the cable, and I'm now going to take the bar tape off, get the shifter off, get the caliper off, and then we'll build the front end up and get all the cable threaded through to the rear mech. And then at some point I'll put the chain on and change the cassettes on the wheels. So yeah, after that little hiccup with the hose, we're back on target. So yeah, I'm pleased with the way everything's going at the moment. Right, let's get this side all stripped out. Right, so I've now got front caliper on, hose all threaded through. That went through a treat. So got to sort out this shifter. And get that connected up hydraulically and mechanically to the rear mech, and then bleed the front and adjust the rear mech, and well, once we've got a chain on, and then we should be good to go. So yeah, crack on. Right, time to bleed the front brake. We've got a completely empty system, so we're going to bleed from the bottom up. So we got a bleeding pot attached to the top of the shifter, nothing in it, and just a little plug just resting in there ready for later. Got a bleeding block in the caliper, and a syringe full of Shimano mineral oil with no air in this pipe. So what we're going to do is put that back on there. Open the bleed nipple. And slowly squeeze it through. And wait for it to come. Yeah, as I was saying, squeeze it through slowly. Unfortunately we had a hose, it just popped off the bleed nipple. So I refilled the syringe and now pushed it through, and we can see we have got fluid in the cup. So now close the bleed nipple and hopefully we should have a decent break. So let's just let that hang down. Yeah, there might still be a little bit of air in there, but we'll see how it goes. I'm fairly happy with that for now. Right, I've installed the cable for the rear mech, and like on the front one, connected it up, nipped it, and then pulled slack. So now undo, pull the slack through, and hopefully we should be good to go on that one. So yeah, then I think get the pads into the back caliper, swap the cassettes over, or get one swapped over so that we've got an 11-speed cassette on here. Get the chain on, and then we can see about setting the rear mech up properly. Right, put the cassette on the wheel. We've got a nice, that's the 105 cassette. I was advised by Foxy Dave when I asked a question, because I've got an old Tegwood cassette and a 105 cassette, which set of wheels I should put which cassette on, and he said put your Ultegra on your lightest set of wheels, which of course are the Mavics. So the 105 going on here, and next to go on, the nice Goldie chain. And I must be honest, because I'm running 5034 at the front and 1134 at the back on this now, that's the same setup as I've got on the Contend. So when I whipped the Contend chain off last night to clean it through the ultrasonic bath, I set this chain, this chain up to the same length as the Contend's got. So I've got to faff around measuring chains, so which is good. So we'll now proceed to put chain on, thread it through the rear derailleur in the proper manner, Making sure it goes the right side of the guides. Less said about that the better. And then we can get the rear wheel in and we can get these gears sorted out. Right. Right, this is a lot later in the day. This project is going to go into day 2. I've had all sorts of trouble indexing the rear derailleur because I tried to skip things. So I'll give a brief explanation. When you set the rear derailleur up, start off with, leave the chain and the cable totally disconnected. And adjust the top limit screw so that the derailleur is in line with a small gear. Then hold the derailleur over and adjust the low limit screw so that it lines up with a large cog. Then you can think about putting cable and chain on. Now, another thing I'll admit to is I had cut that chain too short. I hadn't thought about stay lengths. So the rear derailleur manual on Shimano details how to set that. I've managed to get it right now, and got everything all working nicely. So yeah, lesson learned. I shall carry on with it tomorrow. I've had enough tonight, and yeah. So in the morning, I've basically got to finish sorting the front end out. I might just give that brake another bleed, and then it's bar wrapping time, and hopefully that's all it. Back brake's nice, and that's yeah. So that's where we are at the end of day 1. Right, so it's day 2 of what should have been a one-day project. Done a few little bits and pieces off camera. Got the cadence sensor back on, got the pedals back on, lubed the chain, and that. So this morning we got to re-bleed this front brake. Could do with just a little bit. I mean, it's not too bad, but could be better. What's the back one like now? Yeah, back one's okay. So yeah, I'll put another syringe through that, and then it's front pads, front wheel back in, and then wrap the bars. So yeah, hopefully not a lot more to do now. As I say, I've got the chain the right length now, and that, so we're good to go. hopefully soon. Okay, so just about to put the pads in, and that in the front's all bled. Right, on the pads you get two pads and a spring. The spring goes in there like that, and the other pad on top like that. And then they just push into the caliper. Pad retaining bolt. Not the easiest things to do with one hand. Yeah, just push them in until you can get the retaining bolt all the way through. Then just knit that up firm, and then there's a small safety clip which just goes in the slot in the end of the pin. And that's how the new pad's going. Nice and simple. On the finned ones, they are handed, and the left hand, the one that's marked up as the left hand pad, always goes to the outside, so it will be on this side. But that's about the only difference, and they cool better, so improved braking supposedly. Okay, so front wheel back in. I've just whipped it down onto the ground at the stand. Tried to wrap in the bar tape so I could just double check that I'm happy with the shifter position. Because yes, like a mug, I didn't make a note of exactly where they were before I took them off. But yeah, they feel fine. So now it's just a case of wrapping the bars, and I'm going to try Jason's method using the strip up under here rather than figure of eight them. So all off camera, but I'll show you the results afterwards. Right, well, all the bars are now wrapped. I know there are people that don't approve of coloured tape, but I think it looks great. So, tough. It's the colour coordination of the rest of it, so yeah. Oh, 105. Look at that lovely goldy chain. And that beautiful cassette. I'm chuffed with it. I really am. Just got to test ride it now. But yeah, that's it. At last, it's done. So yeah, test ride and then take it out for a proper ride. because test ride will just be around the car park here at the flats. So yeah, finally done. Just got to edit this vlog now. Right, thanks for watching, folks. Ciao for now. Bye.